Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do part 3 of Genesis. If you missed the last 2 episodes, make sure you check that out so you can understand where we are and just follow along and be able to keep up, okay? So before we talked about the creation, we talked about Adam and Eve, the serpent, what all of this is symbolic of, right? And you have to remember, I'm coming from an esoteric perspective. So eso means within, learning that Jesus, God, is within you, not outside of you, right? Exoteric, which is what the church teaches and, just Christianity and most religions teach. The exo meaning outside of the body, okay? So that's the main difference between what we're learning and trying to teach here. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about Abram and Sarah and his nephew Lot and what all this is symbolic of. Okay, so let's just get straight into it. Okay, the call to leave, get out. Genesis 12, 1 through 2. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will shew thee. And I will make of thee a great nation. And I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. This isn't about a man's physically leaving his family. It's a spiritual call, right? Leave the old patterns. Leave the religion doctrines that we've been taught our whole life. Leave your father's house. Leave all your friends in the old life. Leave it behind for now, right? Leave the inherited beliefs, cultural conditioning, family expectations, religious dogma. This is the voice of higher consciousness, the God voice, telling the lower self to leave familiar structures. Failure to leave these structures means staying trapped in Moon City, which we're going to get into in a second, the lunar mind of reflection and emotion. Spiritual growth is halted. Conscious mind remains limited. Age passes. Inner evolution is stalled. Dwelling in the Father's house, right? Dwelling in the past traditions, what we just talked about. If you move to, before we start, Galatians 4:22 through 24, it literally tells you that Abraham and Sarah is an allegory, right? So this story isn't about two people. It's telling you that it's an allegory, okay? So, for it is written that Abraham had 2 sons, the one by a bondwoman, the other by a free woman. But he who was of the bondwoman was born after the flesh, but he of the free woman was by promise. Which things are an allegory, for those are the 2 covenants, the one from the Mount Sinai, which gendereth to bondage, which is Agar. Okay, so Paul tells us that Abraham and Sarah's story is allegorical, not historical. Allegory means it's a story interpreted for a deeper spiritual meaning, a deeper story, not meant to be read literally. Okay, so we have to understand that when we're reading scripture. It says this multiple times that it's an allegory and it's meant to be read that way. Every single story. Okay, so Ur of the Chaldees equals Moon City. Okay, so just to give a little background, historical context, Ur equals ancient city in Mesopotamia, modern day Iraq, one of the earliest known civilizations. Chaldees equals region, known for astronomy, astrology, and moon worship, culturally tied to lunar cycles and emotions. Abram lived here before leaving around the early 2nd millennial BCE, during a time when city-states were governed by priestly and astrological influence. Okay, so this means the emotional mind equals lunar consciousness. The reason why it's called the Moon City is because sin equals emotion, right? When we're talking about sin, it's not talking about when you go out and drink and when you do drugs. It's talking about the emotions that get involved, right? What happens when you start to get into religion and Christianity and you have all these people coming after you? It's their emotions being involved. That is the sin. And the reason why it's called Moon City is because the moon reflects light. It doesn't create it. Emotions reflect thoughts and beliefs rather than creating reality. Leaving equals leaving emotional reactivity and illusion. Stop reflecting other people's fears, beliefs, and family conditioning. Step into solar consciousness, the inner light of divine awareness. Okay? So I talked about how sin equals emotions. Sin is dwelling in emotions, not moral failings. Religion often misinterprets sin as external acts, but true sin equals staying trapped in emotional reactivity. Matthew 6:25 through 34, right? What does Jesus tell us to do throughout this whole thing? take no thought. Verse 25, take no thought for your life, what ye shall eat. Verse 27, take no thought. Verse 28, consider the lilies of the field, how they grow, they toil not, neither do they spin. Verse 31, therefore take no thought. Verse 34, take therefore no thought for the morrow shall take the thought for the things of itself. Sufficient unto the day it is evil thereof. You cannot stop worrying, right? But you can take no thought and go into meditation. It is telling you that until you go into meditation and take no thought, God, Jesus, whatever, will not talk to you, okay? You have to be willing to quiet the mind, sit in silence, right? The Bible tells you to close the door and to go into prayer. It's telling you sit, take no thought, allow the divine, the right side to speak to you, right? Okay, so then as we move on, after he, tells him, leave the city that we were just talking about. Leave that city and move on, okay? So Abram departs. Genesis 12:4. Abram, and I want to emphasize the fact that it's Abram without the H, right? Abram, not Abraham. And the H comes later, same thing with Sarah. It's Sarah right now, but the H will come later because the H is symbolic of the breath. And we'll get into all that in a second. I'm kind of skipping ahead. But back to Genesis 12:4. So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. The reason why they use the age 75, right? It isn't because this actually matters. All the ages that they use is all symbolic for something, right? Numerology. So age 75 equals 7 plus 5, 12. 12 is the number of purification, right? 12 cranial nerves, 12 zodiac signs, 12 disciples, 12 apostles. All of this. 12 is the number of divine perfection. Number 7 is the divine intervention, right? So when you add them together, you get perfection, but the 7 comes in divine intervention. 5 is of the senses, right? 5 senses: sight, taste, touch, smell, hearing. Abram equals limited human awareness. Abraham with an H equals awakened spiritual consciousness. Departure equals moment when divine intervention touches the senses, leaving the moon city behind, right? So when we have that divine intervention, the number 7, be able to come in and help you understand that your emotions, your 5 senses are hindering you, right? Go into meditation. Don't let any of this come to the forefront. And let the spiritual Abraham, the H, the breath of life, divine, the right side, let it speak to you. Okay, so Abram and Sarah equals mind and emotions, right? Same thing as Cain, Abel, Eve, Adam, Sarah, Abraham. All of these things are representative of the left-right hemisphere, right? The masculine, the feminine, the pituitary, the pineal. Okay, so H and Ha, neither Abram nor Sarah has the H yet. H equals breath, spirit, life force. Spiritual evolution requires receiving the H. Husband equals mind, wife equals emotions. And this is why the Bible tells you that the wife should follow after her husband, right? Listen to the husband. It's not talking about literally do everything your husband says literally, right? It's telling you that the wife, the emotions, needs to be able to, emotions must be governed by the mind. So Genesis 12:13, say I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee. Okay, so in this part, before they're about to enter into the city of Egypt, he's telling his wife, go, act like you're my sister, right? Because if you're my wife, then they'll take you. So Pharaoh in this equals religion, the lower mind, interference. Emotions passed off as spirit equals false spirituality. That's why the plagues start to come, right? Pharaoh tells Abram, he's like, why did you lie to me and tell me that this is your sister? She's brought on all this plague because she brings all this emotional stuff, right? He realizes this. He's like, take your wife and be gone. So that's what happens here. Surrender emotions to your higher consciousness. Okay, so conflict with Abram and Lot. So Lot is Abram's nephew. Okay, and Lot equals nephew equals left side of mind, emotional, reactive, just like Cain and Abel, right? Cain being the left, Abel being the right. Abram equals the right side, seeking promised land, higher consciousness. Genesis 13, 5 through 6, and Lot, which went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their substance was great, so they could not dwell together. Basically telling the same thing that happens with Cain and Abel. You can't, when you try to merge those two, the left and right, you're going to have conflict, right? Internal struggle. One part is seeking worldly control. One part is seeking meditation, higher awareness. Genesis 13:7, and there was a strife between the herdsmen of Abram's cattle and the herdsmen of Lot's cattle, right? Telling you the conflict that's going on. This is all symbolic of the conflict. And the Canaanites and the Perizzites dwelled in the land. Canaanites equals dwellers of long lands, equals the human mind. Perizzites equals dwellers of an open country, lower mind. Meditation allows left side Lot to be consumed by the right side Abram, right? In Genesis 13:11, then Lot journeyed east, right? We talked about this in the last episode, but anytime the Bible says east, right, sits at the right hand of God, cashing it at the right side, they came from the east. It's talking about the right hemisphere of the brain, right? Because if we do north, never eat shredded wheat, that's how I remember it. If you do it, east is on the right side, right? So what does it say here, Genesis 13:11, just to reiterate? Then Lot journeyed east. East equals the divine right side, consuming left side, right? So in this story, the right side consumes the left side, versus when Cain killed Abel, the left side consumed the right side. The matter, the material side consumed that spiritual side. But in this case, the right side consumed the left. In Genesis 13:12 through 12 through 13, Abram dwelt in the land of Canaan. Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain and pitched his tent towards Sodom. But the men of Sodom were wicked. Sodom equals lower mind, sensuality, confusion. Meditation, once again, separates left, reactive, sensual, from right, spiritual, divine. Okay, after this happens and Lot moves to the east, right, comes from the east. Once Lot, lower mind, departs, God speaks directly. Genesis 13:14 through 17. And the Lord said unto Abram, after the Lot was separated from him, lift up now thine eyes, and look from the place where thou art northward, and southward, and eastward, and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it, and in the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee, right? It's telling you that because you have conquered the left side, I will give you everything. I will talk to you, tell you, right? North equals the body, physical. South equals the emotions. East equals the spirit, divine essence. West, intellect, knowledge. All four directions. Full mastery, right? The altar in Hebron, right? So when we move to Genesis 13:18, and Abram moved his tent and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and built there an altar unto the Lord. Hebron equals community. Mamre equals confusion. The spiritual lesson, the altar built in confusion. Sacrifice equals lower nature / animal instincts. True sacrifice equals killing your animal nature, right? It's not talking about bringing a little animal to the altar and let's sacrifice a pig for our well-being, right? It's talking about bringing you're the animal, right? I talked about in the last podcast how McLean in 1990 talked about how the brain is split up in three parts. You have the limbic, which is the emotional part of you. You have the reptilian, which is the animalistic nature, right? And then you have the neocortex, which is the higher level thinking. That is why in the Matrix, Neo gets his name Neo, from the neocortex. Okay? So, Psalm 46, sacrifice and offering thou didst not desire. Mine ears hast thou opened. Burnt offering and sin offering hast thou not required. Okay? There's also a quote from Buddha. As long as animal nature is dominant, you are predictable and can be trapped, right? Telling you that any kind of animal can be trapped. We see it in the zoos, right? Which I don't go to. Neither has my daughter, because I just think it's like weird that we do that. But anyway, right? We can capture an armadillo, or wait, what is an armadillo? I don't know. We can capture all these animals, right? You can be captured when you're in your animalistic nature. We can predict everything that you're gonna do, how you're gonna react in anger and from emotion and sin, right? Because emotion is sin. It's what it's saying. So once we move on, and let me flip in my Bible just to keep up in case I'm, right. And I also forgot to mention, when they were going into, like when Lot first met up with Abram and all that, they were moving into, right, they're about to go into Egypt. Egypt is symbolic of the lower mind, and we'll get into all that when we move into Exodus more. But I just wanted to make sure that you understand that Egypt is symbolic for the lower mind, right? Israel is symbolic for the higher mind, and we'll get into that. But Abraham rescues Lot, divine intervention. Genesis 14:12, and they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. Left side, Lot, lower mind, can get you in trouble, right? And a lot of this information I get is from Bill Donahue. So if you want to check out his podcast, I got most of this stuff from him, and I probably sound just like him because he has such a beautiful way of just interpreting and helping you understand what it's actually saying, right? And it's telling you how many times has Cain or Lot, the left side of your brain, the emotional state, gotten you in trouble, right? You do something and you're like, oh, I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal, and you end up in jail for 2 years, or you know what I'm saying? And it's like telling you that that left side is always going to get you in trouble, right? Genesis 14:15, and he divided himself against them, he and his servants by night, and smote them, and pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. Damascus equals activity. Left hand equals left side, lower mind. Abram, spiritual side, rescues Lot, the emotional side, the right side. Genesis 14:16, and he brought back all of the goods, and also brought again his brother Lot. Okay, and right there you see, and Bill Donahue talks about how they make errors like calling him his brother when it's his nephew on purpose to help you understand that this isn't meant to be read literal, right? It is symbolic. It is an allegory for a deeper spiritual understanding, right? If you continue to read the Bible literal, this is where you have so many people that start to argue and fight, and religions go against each other, right? The Tower of Babel. I don't think we went over that in the last episode, but it was just the ending of it's what was supposed to be at the ending of that episode. The Tower of Babel is just talking about how he starts off by saying there was one language, right? Everybody understood. But what happens? Everybody starts to bring their own bricks. They start to bring their own interpretations of what they think, and everybody starts to fight. And now we have everybody start to babble, right? Run their mouth, and that's where you get the Tower of Babel. But if you read these stories literal, you won't understand why the Bible says stuff. It'll seem like it's contradicting itself. It'll say stuff like slavery and all these things that won't make sense to you and won't resonate with you. Okay, but for me, the way that I'm interpreting it right now, it seems New Age, right? But I promise it isn't. I've recommended so many books right there. The Secret Doctrine, God-Man. Secret Doctrine was written in 1888. Manny P. Hall's books, any of them, really. Occult Anatomy of Man. Secret Teachings of All Ages. These are all books that were written a very long time ago. The Lost Language of Crystal something. I could be saying that wrong. A great book that tells you where our language and all this stuff comes from. Getting books like the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? Or the Egyptian Book of Dead, which I'm getting through right now. You understand that our Bibles were the same exact thing as before, right? Just interpreted in different ways. The Emerald Tablets, the same thing as the Lord's Prayer. It's all saying the same thing, right? During this time, like we had the Egyptian period, then we had the Greek period. During this time, you had all these philosophers and people were going to Egypt and learning this stuff, right? Stealing almost information, or not even stealing, if you will, rewriting it in such more creative ways and artistic ways. and putting it in a new form. And I have an episode on my channel that talks about how Christianity became the main religion, right? You had Emperor Constantine, who supposedly had a dream right before they had the Battle of Milvan or something like that. And he said he saw signs of crosses, and they were told to put them on their swords and on their shields, and they won that battle. Okay, so they believed that Christianity should be the main religion, and it isn't necessarily about that, but it's about what they were taught before that. They were reading the Bibles how we are right now, interpreting them. They were called Gnostics. Gnostics comes from the word Gnosticism, which means literally to know the spiritual knowledge, to know knowledge. And they understood this spiritual wisdom. They knew what it was saying, and they knew that they weren't supposed to read it literally. But when they pushed Christianity out, and you had the Nag Hammadi Library and the Council of Nicaea, who made it the dominant religion, and so they started to send missionaries throughout Europe and all over the world, right? And start teaching it the way they wanted to. Rewrote the books a little bit different. And it seems when you go back into history like, oh, we shouldn't be listening to this stuff because look who wrote it. But when you understand that there's esoteric wisdom in all of this, it almost helps you be like, okay, I'm on their level. And not in the sense of like you do maybe the bad things you think they do, or you think the same way they do, but the wisdom is in there. They put it in everything, and it's up to you. It's like a game. Who's going to figure this out, right? Who's going to really decode this? Like the Bible says, only few will walk through the narrow gate. Who's going to get through the narrow gate and understand what we're really trying to say? Or who's going to, walk with everybody else, the millions and billions of Christians that read the Bible a certain way? And it's hard when you start to do this and you try to explain and help others on their journey understand this. But continue to do the work on yourself, and that will help others follow your path, right? They'll see, okay, continue to do the work and understand history, everything that I just told you. It was a point where I didn't know any of that stuff, and when I tried to, talk to others and help them change, or maybe see from my perspective, it wasn't happening because I didn't myself understand anything. So really do the work, go within, understand what you're talking about, and don't get scared and go back to the house, right? Like it said in the beginning, get out. You have to move. I'm instructing you to move from your father's house, right? So just to continue, because I started yapping a little bit. Okay, so spiritual lesson, God does not speak until law is gone. Left side is shut down. So Sarah equals not yet Sarah with the H, right? We talked about that. The Sarah, right, is the breath, the spirit. H in Hebrew literally means breath or spirit. And Sarah with the H becomes divine womb, gives birth spiritually, right? And we'll get into that later, to Isaac. And Isaac literally means joy, laughter. Transformation occurs only after internal left side purification and meditation. Okay, so I'm just going to go over a few key things that I hope you took from the little summary. So get out of the house of your kindred equals leave inherited consciousness. Ur of the Chaldees equals leave the moon city, emotional reactivity, right? Leave all that behind. Leave the church, leave everything. And if you want to go back, please do. But for a moment on your journey, leave it just so you can get a different perspective and understanding, right? Sin equals dwelling in emotions, not external moral acts. Abram without the H equals limited awareness. Abraham with the H equals awakened consciousness. Sarah equals emotions. Sarah with the H equals divine womb activated by H. Lot equals left mind, reactive. Abram equals right mind, divine. Same thing as Cain and Abel, right? Cain being the left, he kills Abel, the right side, the spiritual side. Meditation separates left and right. God speaks after Lot departs. Hebron, altar, sacrifice and confusion, animal nature surrendered. Abraham rescues Lot, equals right side restores order and left side chaos. Promise given when left side is silent, ready for spiritual reception. Remember, he said, I'll give it to you all. You've done what I've asked. You went into the closet, shut the door, right? Jesus says, let thy eye be single and the whole body be filled with light, right? There's so many instances in the Bible where it's literally telling you, and lately I've been having some people comment on my videos just like, you don't know what you're talking about and you shouldn't be preaching. And you have to not let that stuff get to you. It doesn't bother me, because once you understand this stuff so, like, I mean, like, deeply understand it, not just like listening to other people and copying them, but like truly have an understanding, which I find that I have gotten in the past few years. I can just start reading a chapter out of the Bible and it just makes sense, because when you understand to take none of it literally, when you understand the basis of 12 being divine order, 7 being another divine number, right? 7 chakras, 7 luminary planets. When you understand the as above, so below, when you understand the emerald tablets, when you understand history, right? Like how Christianity became a thing and all of these things, you become so confident, right? And that is where spiritual wisdom comes from. Too many people, I think, in our world, you know, the Bible tells you the fruits of your labor will show. And I feel like that's a misconception when we start to see people gain things. And I see so many people come on, you know, TikTok or whatever, and they're like, oh, I went from spirituality to back to Christianity and religion, and they get like 1 million likes and views. And it's like, those types of things you have to not let get to you. That's not what that means, because you have to look at the many preachers who have mansions and Rolls Royces and all these things, and it's like, money, wealth, that kind of thing, material stuff means nothing, right? You need to be able to look past that, the illusions, right? And understand that it's much more important to have spiritual wealth. Access and try to gain that spiritual wealth versus the material wealth. That will too come. I'm not saying, you know, don't go after any of those things that you want in life. What I'm saying though is, when you can go after the spiritual wealth, right, the rest will follow, and it will be true, and you won't have to be 60 years old fighting and something inside of you craving for that spiritual side, right? Because you'll be practicing it and living by that. So yeah, I hope today's episode was a little bit better than last episode. It's a bit more organized. I hope you learned something. If you did, make sure to follow, like, you know, do all that jazz. And make sure you follow me on TikTok, Ashley_Eckerly_. And yeah, I hope you guys have a good week.